The prosecutor painted a vivid portrait of Hunter Biden, the crack addict, including evidence from his laptop and text messages admitting, "I'm a liar and a thief, a user and an addict."
Ain't nothing changed, nothing new here to see. This ain't nothing but some political maneuvering.
America.
Welcome to the eulogy, eat it up. It's called political buffoonery.
Hey there, everybody, and welcome to This Week in DUMBmocracy, where we showcase some of the dumbest newsmakers of the week. Last week, the Hunter Biden gun possession trial in Delaware kicked off, with the Department of Justice entering Hunter Biden's laptop into evidence. This is not only a signal that there is information on the laptop that is relevant to this case concerning his gun possession and lying on applications to obtain firearms based upon his drug addict status, but also a signal that the information on the laptop is verifiably true. This is a far cry from where we were 4 years ago in another election cycle where the Biden administration, the left-wing media, and the intelligence community were telling everybody, screaming up and down, left and right and center, that this whole laptop thing was a farce, a lie, a stunt, and most importantly, Russian disinformation.
Damn that crazy, jealous Russian.
We're going to look back at all that because we don't want this information memory hold. But before we do, I'm going to ask you guys to please subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of the shows. And if you like what you see and hear in this or any other video we have on my small little political channel here, I'm going to ask you guys to smash that thumbs up button, like, comment, share the show with your friends, all that good stuff, because all that feeds the YouTube algorithm. Thank you guys so much for all that you're doing, helping to grow the channel. We are 20 subscribers away from 2,000. Can we reach that this week? I know that we can, thanks to all of you out there. And to all you newbies out there who may have found the channel for the first time, I hope this video earns your subscription because we're talking about something really important here. And that's what I like to call memory holding. The 24/7 news cycle does not lend itself to long memories of what's going on in politics and current events. And that's what political buffoons take advantage of. They take advantage of you not keeping up with what I like to call the tennis ball machine gun theory of politics. You ever see those tennis ball machines that shoot balls over the net? Well, what happens when that's set on high and there's 100 balls coming at you and you have that one racket to hit something back? You're going to miss a great majority of what's going on. That's what political buffoons thrive off of. They thrive off your lack of memory or the memory holding of certain events that are relevant to something many years later. So let's look back at the Hunter Biden laptop news that broke back in 2020 during another election cycle and see how that impacts today. Everybody, meet Emma Jo Morris. She was the deputy politics editor at the New York Post, the newspaper that broke the Hunter Biden laptop story back in October of 2020, right before the election. I'm sure you guys remember that. But in case you don't, let's go back and look at President Joe Biden's reaction initially to the breaking of this Hunter Biden laptop story.
Flashback.
50 former national intelligence folks who said that what he's accusing me of is a Russian plant. They have said that this has all the five former heads of the CIA, both parties, say what he's saying is a bunch of garbage.
This is classic Trump. We have 4 days left, and all of a sudden there's a laptop. There's overwhelming evidence that from the intelligence community that the Russians are engaged.
I still think that the stories from the fall about your son Hunter were Russian disinformation at a smear campaign, like you said.
Yes. I know you'd ask it. I have no response. It's another smear campaign. It's a last-ditch effort in this desperate campaign to smear me and my family. The vast majority of the intelligence people have come out and said there's no basis at all.
End of flashback.
So yeah, the Biden campaign, they covered the whole thing up. They tried to not talk about it. They didn't want to give it any comment because they didn't want the story blowing up any more than it was. But moreover, they basically said the story was completely false and blamed President Donald Trump for spreading a false narrative. Oh, how things have changed in the past 4 years. And I thought it'd be interesting to go back to see what Emma Jo Morris now thinks about the legacy of this story from 2020, now that we're in a new presidential election cycle.
I was deputy politics editor of the New York Post in October of 2020, and the lead byline on the Laptop from Hell series, or what it's come to be known as by the New York Post. I find it funny every time I kind of get asked, do you feel vindicated? Obviously, this has been confirmed over and over again over the last 3+ years. And the thing is, I didn't have much of a career when I wrote those stories. And so before they were published, I was vindicated because I was absolutely sure that what we had was legit and airtight and bomb tight.
And of course, when you are the first byline on the story, you're the lead reporter on the story, and you don't have much of a reputation to build off of, people are going to question that story, right? Because you're not really truly known in your own field or in politics in general. So you got to make sure that you got your facts straight. And clearly Morris did that. And we're only recognizing that after the election because of a concerted effort by the Biden campaign, the intelligence community that they enlisted to help them, and the media who just bought his story hook, line, and sinker, as opposed to the actual story and the research done by Morris and those other intrepid reporters at the New York Post.
We made sure, obviously, I had everything to lose personally if I were to get those stories wrong. Obviously, it's not a small deal when you're reporting on the Democratic candidate for president's son's computer.
Ain't that the truth? Could you imagine the retribution if she would have gotten it wrong and what would have happened to her? I mean, clearly the story was vilified for years, even to this day, by many Democrats. So you could imagine if there was one thing wrong, a scintilla of evidence that wasn't backed up in the story. Imagine what she would have been destroyed.
If I had Don Jr.'s computer that had the exact same contents on it, it was the exact same thing exactly, and it was just Don Jr. was the owner and not Hunter Biden, I would have run it 1,000%. It was newsworthy and important to inform the public before the election that one of the candidates potentially was taking money, or so it appeared, from the Chinese Communist Party. That is newsworthy, and I don't care who it's about. I don't care. I don't work for any campaigns. I don't work for any candidates. I was working for the New York Post, and that was my job.
That was her job. I wish more reporters took this line instead of doing what the media did in response to the story. And in case you don't remember that, and that was memory hold as well, let's look back at some clips.
Obviously, we're not going with the New York Post story right now on Hunter Biden.
This is really one of the stupidest October surprises I've ever seen.
It helps to really view this as storytelling, not so much as news coverage, but as political entertainment.
NPR explained, we don't want to waste our time on stories that are not really stories.
We should note Hunter Biden isn't running for president. That argument has been debunked.
There is no evidence that Joe Biden did anything wrong.
For all we know, these emails are made up.
It just lacks credibility.
By the way, all credit goes to Tom Elliott and Grabian for those clips that you just saw. He's an aggregator of news clips, and whenever I need to find something for backfill or context, I always look to his Twitter account because he's amazing at what he does. Follow him on X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it. If you're interested in different topics of the news and need to find what happened way back when or what happened currently or a compilation of things to put greater context into what you're talking about. Back to this story now. We've seen the media's reaction to the Hunter Biden laptop story back in 2020. I want to see what Morris has to say about the reception by her peers and her colleagues concerning her story.
I don't think that the media has enough self-awareness or enough understanding of its role and the reason for its existence to ever own up to anything that they said. I mean, yeah, apology probably isn't the right word, but at least to, you don't, I guess, owe an apology. It would be just more like more pragmatic than that, like clarifying to their readers and listeners, like, by the way, I totally misinformed you and I totally led you wrong a couple years ago. And since then, there's been this, mountain of evidence that's come out that I was totally wrong. And you need to know for your own information that actually, no, this is totally real, this is totally legit, this is not tampered with, it's not altered, it's not from Russia, whatever. And they don't see their role as that. So I don't see that they'll ever do that. It seems like these shows and columns and mastheads are kind of all just like vanity projects for self-promotion of these individual journalists. So
I totally and completely agree. They're hacks. And I talk about what a hack is in my book, Schnooks, Crooks, Liars, and Scoundrels, a field guide to identify political buffoons, available right now on Amazon, at Barnes & Noble, and other online bookstores. Today's media hack is different than a journalist. A journalist will tell you information in a non-biased manner. They'll present you with facts. They'll present you with the story. They may narrate to get you some backfill and some information on it. But for the most part, the journalist keeps their own personal point of view out of the story. A hack, on the other hand, will be more interested and care more about what narrative they want to put forth rather than talking about facts. Their beautiful narrative that they want to create often puts themselves into the story. Think of Jim Acosta at CNN or any other hack that you can think of out there that sort of interjects their own bias, their own opinion into everything they do. And then think about the damage that beautiful narrative creates. All that beautiful narrative is meant to do is to further the hack's career. It's totally selfish for the next show, like Jim Acosta being promoted from White House correspondent to a weekend commentator with his own show. Think about other people out there who have used those beautiful narratives to further their career, whether it be someone like Brianna Joy Gray that we just did a video on that went from a national spokesperson for Bernie Sanders to a show on the Hill Rising where she was just fired from. And now she'll probably go back to another position because her career will be furthered based upon her beautiful narrative that she puts forth, and that being a far-left narrative in her case. These journalists, these hacks, I should say, are in it for themselves and not in it for you to gain the information you need to make the informed choices that come with every election cycle.
In order to do that, it would require A, humility, and B, taking themselves down a peg, which is the exact opposite of what they see their day-to-day mission as.
Absolutely perfectly put by Emma Jo Morris here. Hacks care about themselves. They have their vanity. They have their selfish goals here. They have their agenda. Now, news agencies can also have their agenda when you think about it. They can be hacks as well, like a network that caters to just one side of a political argument and then furthers themselves and ingratiates themselves with those people who agree with that narrative and find advertisers who are willing to pay for the furtherance of that narrative. It's a vicious cycle in the news.
You guys are sellouts!
Now, a bigger question is, how much fault do you give to the hack as opposed to the campaign who enlisted the intelligence community to sort of weaponize this story and turn it around into a different narrative that the media then just accepted at face value? When we come back from the break, we're going to talk about the role of the intelligence community with this Hunter Biden laptop story. Like what you see so far? Go ahead and smash that thumbs up button. Also, leave us a comment and tell us what you're thinking. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another show. Before we get back to Emma Jo Morris's commentary on her own story and the legacy of it, let's go back in time once again to 2020, and let's see how the media bought into the Biden campaign's intelligence narrative, the letter that the Biden campaign circulated to multiple people in the intelligence community that the media then bought hook, line, and sinker.
More than 50 former intelligence officials released a statement that the laptop had all the classic earmarks of a Russian information operation.
It's a story that many intelligence experts say has all the hallmarks of a foreign interference campaign.
It looks like it's tied to Vladimir Putin in Moscow.
This is a Russian intelligence disinformation campaign.
Foreign intelligence operation.
Foreign intelligence operation.
Russian intelligence.
Rudy Giuliani was not fed passively Russian disinformation. He ordered it off the menu.
I'm sure you remember all that from 4 years ago, how the intelligence community was going around saying this is just BS, and the media ran with that as opposed to the work done by Emma Jo Morris and her people at the New York Post. In fact, you remember social media banning the distribution and dissemination of the story on its various platforms, or they paused it, or they out and out just stopped it from being circulated and banned it. Emma Jo Morris clearly put in a lot of work in this, because here we are 4 years later talking about the DOJ using it as evidence, as true and accurate information in a trial against the president's son. I'm sure she has more than a few choice words towards the intelligence community and what these spies did with regards to this 2020 election and the impact their letter had on the outcome.
And honestly, though, if anybody has any apologizing to do, it's really the FBI. It's the intelligence community who is the origin and the genesis of this lie and this disinformation, to take the words of spies and repeat them just verbatim, Politico, just verbatim, with no critical thinking, with no criticism, with no nothing, not a single question to follow up on anything, after they just spent 3 years in a runaround with the exact same people telling them fake things to tell the American public about the Manchurian candidate Donald Trump from Russia.
That's right. The same people got fooled again by the same people. But did they really get fooled? Did the media get fooled by the intelligence community? Or was it just convenient for them to use the quote-unquote expertise of the intelligence community, those 51 people who signed off on that letter, to further their own beautiful narrative?
Useful idiots.
It's a giant snowball rolling down a hill, gaining momentum, thanks to that little nudge from the intelligence community. The media ran with it because they wanted it to be true, not because it was true. The job of a journalist is to find truth sometimes, especially investigative journalists like James O'Keefe, for example. It's not the job to accept things from the intelligence community. People who are known to lie outright to your face because it's part of their job, it's not to take that at face value. A true journalist, like Morris here, knows what the work is needed to be done here for stories like this. They got to verify everything. They got to get their hands on information. They have to get background sources to verify things. It takes a lot more than just publishing something. You got to have the substance to back it up. And these media hacks use these experts to back them up. Turned out it was just a giant house of cards here.
This is all smoke and mirrors.
But it also led to the next 4 years that we have this crisis of expertise. We don't trust experts in the legal field. We don't trust experts in the healthcare field. We don't trust experts in the national security field at all, because these experts, in many respects, have discredited themselves and therefore have become unreliable to the American public.
Is just, it can't be overstated how, I don't want to use the word dumb it is, because that's not the right word.
We use buffoonish here, Emma Jo. If you want to use buffoonish, you're certainly more than welcome to use our word.
It's just preposterous. It's a total abdication of their duty. It's a total abdication of their role. It's so unserious, and really it's so damaging. It's so damaging to this country. I get it. They're human beings and they want to be invited to parties, and they don't want to upset their friends, and they don't want to upset their spouses, and they don't want to upset their peers and colleagues. And okay, but where do you draw the line?
Emma Jo Morris brings up a great point here. The peer pressure of being in the in crowd in D.C., being part of the intelligentsia of D.C., of the swamp, if you will. To be counted among them, to be one of them, to fit in their society.
One of us. One of us.
And it takes someone from outside that bubble to take truth more seriously than fitting in. It's a hard thing to do. In society, it's very hard for people to say, I'm going to stand out away from the crowd, away from the in crowd. We see this growing up through junior high and high school and college and all throughout our lives. It takes someone with real character to step up and say, no, I stand for something greater than my own personal gain or the admiration and mutual glorification society that is Washington, D.C.
Join the circle jerk, grab a dick.
I thought it was insane and almost beyond parody what I was watching as the entire political establishment, intelligence community, media establishment, big tech, everyone just made up a story that I knew wasn't true. And these were like some big authority or something, but vindication, I mean, I guess it's kind of funny now to watch them all have to walk back this kind of crazy, outrageous claim that they had all made, but I was vindicated the minute we pressed publish.
Good for you, Emma Jo Morris, and everybody else that worked on this story. You certainly are vindicated, but here we are 4 years later, still talking about it. And that's the greater issue here in pushing back against political buffoonery. A lie travels around the world 1,000,000 times before the truth gets out of bed. The truth of this story is only now coming out years after its publishing, and not quickly enough in time to educate voters into who should be president back in 2020. We have lived with the consequences of that choice and the actions of the media and the intelligence community and the Biden campaign for the past 4 years or so. We can't let this happen again. We can't let this story get memory hold once again. It just can't happen. We need to remind everyone. Everyone needs to remember the Hunter Biden laptop story that came out in October 2020 is the same Biden laptop that is evidence in a criminal trial against the son of the President of the United States. It's not something different. It's the same exact thing. Imagine how your vote may have changed if you would have known for a fact, the way that the DOJ is representing today, that this laptop contained damaging information about the Biden crime family accepting money from communist China, allegedly, was actually verified in October of 2020. Would Joe Biden even have been president? I'm not going to speculate on that. You can certainly do that in the comments. What I'm trying to say is, let the truth live out now in the 2024 election cycle, and remind all your friends and fellow voters out there that they lied to you. The Biden campaign lied to you. The media lied to you. The intelligence community lied to you. The Hunter Biden laptop was always true, accurate, and verifiable.
All of it. It's all true.
Get that word out there, and let's get into the comments together to discuss this story. I want to know what you think about the legacy of the Hunter Biden laptop story and the impact it should have on the 2024 election. Let's get into the comments together, and as always, like and share this video with your friends, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of the shows. Let's have a big old conversation about Hunter Biden, this trial, and this laptop, along with all the other shenanigans and buffoonery happening every day this week in DUMBmocracy.
All views and opinions expressed here are not necessarily of the mainstream media and may offend some listeners. It's called political buffoonery.